this the future of real estate investing? Find out on today's episode of Be the Bank. Let's jump right into it. All right, it's episode number 65, February 2024. We're going to start with this month's recap, getting into next month's agenda. Then we're going to talk about the future of real estate investing and if the Vision Pro is worth it for next level spatial computing. Then we're going to be talking about the market and not the mastermind today, a new program called the Note Investor Network. And then a case study rewind, of course, to wrap things up. So let's start with that recap of this month's content. So first off, we've launched the Mortgage Note Investing Forum. Everyone has access to this over at FIXnotes.com/forum. So I highly encourage you to check it out. For more experienced note investors, this is a great place to start to establish yourself as an expert in the industry. And for new note investors, it's an awesome place to ask questions, to get your understanding of the business locked down by talking to experts in the business. So then we've got as well our mastermind members only call number 38 wrapped up. The first Wednesday of every month, February 7th, we talked to two of our members. One was a case study on first note to last note and everything that they learned over their career investing in mortgage notes. And then we heard from our second investor, our second member of the group, talking about building a portfolio without using outside capital. Then we had our open office hour every week. So this is our new program for the Note Investor Network. Every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, we have group consulting sessions. We jump on Zoom for a little FIXnotes Friday to hang out before the weekend and talk shop. So definitely want to stay tuned to hear more about the Note Investor Network and how you can get invited to those weekly Zoom calls. All right, little client portfolio update. I want to keep doing these to make sure we have an idea of where I'm at with my client portfolio, which informs really everything that I learn and communicate to you about this business. So our latest trade, as you know from our last call, was a 209 non-performing loan portfolio with 6.1 million of principal balance. We had 13 pending mods now. That's up. Actually, it was 13 pending in January as well, but you'll see this number. 15 mods are now in place. We've had 3 payoffs already, one of them being a discount and 2 of them being full payoffs. That's all just from the latest portfolio. Now, our total assets under management as of now are 409 first and second position secured liens. Now, this is down from, I think, 411 in our January call because we've had some loan sales and some payoffs. Then we've got our cash flowing portfolio is now 87 loans, $38,000 per month of revenue on the reperforming loans that we took from non-performing and got modified. And as these completed modifications start to season and then continue to make their payments, they'll be added to that $38,000 figure as we grow. All right, and then finally, it's 15 million of principal balance now currently under management by FIXnotes. And that number, I think, for the next couple of months is actually just going to decrease as loans are paid down, loans are sold, loans are paid off, and then until the next portfolio where we'll then re-up that number with some more assets. All right, so let's talk about next month, what we've got going on for the future of March. So first off, members only call number 39 is coming March 6th. 4 p.m. It's the first Wednesday of every month for mastermind members only. We're going to start with new member introductions and a membership update. Then we're going to talk to one of our investors about scaling up, raising a fund, and creating, raising capital with other people's money to raise a note fund, to buy bigger portfolios, to work with bigger counterparties, do bigger deals. So that'll be an interesting one. And then our next open office hour, again, every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern. You can join the network or the mastermind for access and recordings of all of these sessions. So that'll be every single Friday. I'll see you there this week if you join. And then finally, our cherry pick non-performing loan sale offering is going to be released in early March. So this will be at least 1 million of unpaid principal balance. Like always, we put these out every other month to members only. So our last trade was 54 loans nationwide with 1.7 million of principal balance in first and second position, mostly secured by single family residential properties. So we'll talk soon about this and how you can actually get access to portfolios in the Note Investor Network. Mastermind members have priority, but you can still see exclusive deal flow by joining our lower end program now, which is super affordable, and we'll talk about that soon. All right, so let's jump into it. The future of note investing. So we're going to talk about how this guy, the Vision Pro, can change the game for you, or maybe it's just all hype. So I'm gonna be totally honest with you about my thoughts. Let's put on the headset and see what my workspace actually looks like. All right, so it's time to jump right in here. I guess you can watch me put it on first. Let's go. Crank it up. All right, we're inside of the future of note investing. This is my workspace. I've got 5 windows here and a whiteboard over here on the Murphy bed. And basically the way I've got this set up is this screen is my MacBook. So this is the presentation we're looking at. Over here, I've got some due diligence acquisition work. I'm looking at the preliminary trade results of a recent portfolio that we're selling in the mastermind group. You can see the pricing as a percentage of UPB, the priority first or second position liens, the UPB, the value of the properties, the senior lien balance for the seconds, as well as the property addresses and asset IDs. So this is the Excel app native to the Vision Pro. On this screen, I've got Safari opened up with the mastermind state level Podio database. So any due diligence that I'm doing over here, here's Ohio. Let's see if we can take a look at some Ohio deal and see what we've got going for the state level details. You don't need a license in Ohio. It's a judicial state, so foreclosure takes a bit longer, 5 to 7 months for foreclosure. And I can link right out to some more information and learn about this state as I'm doing my due diligence. Then if we look over on this side, we've got our portfolio resolution workspace. Over here is Podio, looking at my inventory or my portfolio that I'm managing. I can scroll through assets here. I can also look through individual assets if I click into these. And then on this page, I've got my Gmail set up, looking at the loan modification agreements that I'm working on for February. So combining these two together, I can stay on top of the active deals that I'm working on, using Podio, of course, as my main database to track our resolutions. So what's really cool about this, before we get over here to the whiteboard, is anything that I'm doing on my Mac here, our presentation, of course, I can actually use the mouse and keyboard when I go over to these pages. Because sometimes, like, the pinching is cool and all, it's pretty responsive, but when you're looking at tiny little elements in Podio, for example, having the mouse and keyboard is great. So if I just look at one of these pages, there is my trackpad, my mouse is live. And I can also use the keyboard to search a specific deal that I'm working on. So if I just type it in there, I'll get the assets that are relevant to my search. So really great that I can use the keyboard and mouse, because at the end of the day, the ability to click things in an app that's not necessarily made for the Vision Pro can get a little difficult. It is interesting to know, though, that this Excel app is native, which is cool. I can still use my mouse and my keyboard for this process as well. So really cool. Now, if we loop back over here to the whiteboard, here's a really cool tip for this. If I put my whiteboard window right up against or pretty close to a surface like this, when I'm actually using my pen tools here, I can touch the screen and get the taptic feedback of my finger actually touching a surface, which is great rather than just doing it in midair. Oh, and by the way, all of these pages I can do the same thing with. Now I'm touching the wall here because it's right up against the wall, which feels pretty cool. It's like I'm touching a big screen. So that's awesome. This is really to strategize, map out an org chart, document a process that we're working on. Basically just sketch out your thoughts. So it's nice to have a whiteboard so you can really get your idea on paper, quote unquote, which then you can use as a PDF. You can send it over to the Mac to do other things with, perhaps create a presentation. Now, there's so much more we can do here. In the rest of the house, if we went outside of these walls, we could have set up in the kitchen a menu book and other things that we're working on for preparing food. We could also have, obviously, entertainment, other things set up in the living room or other areas of the house. So this is really what I would say is the future of note investing. But hold the horses before you actually go out and buy this. We're going to talk about the downsides when we take this thing off. All right, so let's get back into it here and go on to why this might not actually be the future of note investing. Or at least not yet the future of note investing. So here are the downsides. First off, this thing is kind of cumbersome. It's got a battery attached to it. It's big, it's heavy. You can't really wear it comfortably for a long period of time. Also, the abundance of screens is cool in theory, but at the end of the day, what I really like to do when I'm using just my Mac is to have multiple spaces. So a 3-finger swipe between different windows, they're not called windows, I think they're called spaces, but different pages of your Mac. You could have one set up for your due diligence with a spreadsheet and a database from the Mortgage Note Mastermind Podio workspace. Another space, you do a 3-finger swipe, can be your Gmail and your inventory or your portfolio in Podio. Another 3-finger swipe can be your outbound efforts to fill your acquisition pipeline. You can have these multiple screens set up in a way that makes a little bit more sense, in my opinion, than to have this thing stuck to your face. And if you have the hardware to stand up, for example, and move your computer with you, or to move your keyboard and mouse up, then you don't necessarily need to have these floating screens because you can have your physical screen in your space. So looking at, while we're at it here, I can just show you. If you swipe 3 fingers up like this, these are the spaces that I'm talking about. Having one set up for different purposes in your business just makes a little bit more sense, in my opinion, than to strap that cumbersome thing onto your face. Some other downsides, well, the price. It's model I got, the 512 gigabyte, was just shy of $4,000. So you can buy a really nice monitor, a whole nother computer, and maybe even have enough to spare for buying a mortgage note. Yes, the cheapest note in our January offering was $1,500. So you could buy a mortgage note and more with the $4,000 that you'd otherwise spend on what is essentially a gadget, a toy. So really, I will say the best use case for this thing is entertainment and media consumption. It's not necessarily a producing device, it's more of a consuming device. And you know me, as members of the mastermind especially, you know that every call we talk about our values, and one of them is creativity over consumption. We want to have a net positive value contributed, not extracting. Not that watching a movie is extracting per se, and there's nothing against that. Relaxing after a time. I did check out the Avatar Way of Water in 3D, just an amazing experience. So it's worth checking out for sure, but the entertainment side is just much better of an experience than the productive side. Last thought here on the Vision Pro is the idea of the future of computing, spatial computing, the future of note investing. I do believe that this is a path that will make sense in the future as the form factor comes down and as shared experiences are more possible. So right now, there isn't any shared experience to look at the same window if 2 people are wearing the goggles at the same time. So I believe that's most likely on the roadmap very soon for Apple. So that will be a much more collaborative, productive way to use the device, especially outside of real estate investing and into the real world. And when I say real estate investing, I really mean mortgage notes where we're dealing with paper, dealing with physical real estate. You can see how cool this would be to use to basically create a rendering and then walk around a future development you're working on to see a model of some construction. In real estate, this thing is going to be the future for sure. And with a with an iPhone that has LiDAR sensors, for example, where you can use your phone to actually physically map out a space and create a 3D model, can be very, very useful for a use case like that. So at the end of the day, I do think it's a fun toy, but I don't think it's going to be the future anytime soon. So hold your cash for now for better investments, like actually buying a note and getting into the business. And by the way, it does create some lines around your face. All right, so let's get into the rest of the show here, and we'll move on to assets for sale. So as we already mentioned in our recent offering, we had a $1,400 loan sold. This is a screenshot from actually the beginning of last year, so this isn't updated at this point. But you can get the idea. In Podio, we have the Aggregated Trade Desk, which is a industry-wide classified, essentially, of opportunities in the market. And we put out exclusive inventory to the mastermind group every other month. So our next offering is coming out in March. We're just now wrapping up our January offering that's closing February, and now our March offering will be coming up in the beginning of the month. So this will be at least 50 or so non-performing first and second position loans. There's no minimums. You can cherry pick these assets individually, and it'll be first for the mastermind priority access. And for the new Note Investor Network, you'll have access access to the assets that did not sell in the January offering. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the Note Investor Network, so stay tuned for that. Here it is, the Note Investor Network. So this is a new program, a new product for you that is one tier below the Mortgage Note Mastermind. As the Mastermind has increased in price and become unobtainable for some people, we want to make sure that those barriers to entry are still in a way that new investors can get into this space. So this is a new program. It's just $97 a month to start. It includes asset purchase opportunities. They're kind of second tier, so to speak, but a great place to start to learn due diligence, to look at some small balance, lower UPB loans that can sometimes cost as little as $1,400, $1,500, and also have access to the trade results of the deal flow from the mastermind group. So you have that visibility into the next offering that comes to the network because you see that unsold loans from the mastermind offerings. We've got our foundation video courses. So for the mastermind, we have the masterclass series. For the Note Investor Network, we have the foundation series. So this is a training that goes through advanced acquisitions, advanced due diligence, and advanced resolutions. So super, super important to build the foundation and then hopefully graduate to the Mortgage Note Mastermind, where, by the way, you have access to all of this and more. We've got expert session recordings. Now, these are the Zoom calls that we've done with the mastermind members over the last 3 years that have been edited and repackaged and released on a monthly basis to members of the network. So when you're a mastermind member, you get access to these as live calls. As a Note Network member, then you get these recordings, which are organized by the topic that you can really drill into what suits your particular situation as a note investor. Then the newest thing, which is the most exciting, is weekly Zoom calls. So weekly Zoom FIXnotes Fridays, we have these open office hours, which have been so awesome so far. Mortgage Note Mastermind members have priority to ask questions on these calls, but you can learn so much just by being on and listening to those conversations. And of course, you can ask questions as well. You'll just be a little farther down in the queue after the mastermind members have their questions answered as well. So those are every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Super, super cool. We're really excited how that's going so far. And then the private forum. You have access to the same forum that the Mortgage Note Mastermind members have access to as a Note Investor Network member, where you can ask questions, you can share your wins, what you're working on, ask for feedback on things like your Note Investor website or critiques on a deal that you're working on, the due diligence or the resolution process. So important to collaborate with a network of note investors. And finally, 25% off my consulting rates if you want to work with me one-on-one, which is more than the amount the mastermind members pay, which is a 50% off consulting rates if you ascend to the membership of the mastermind. So limited time, $97 per month. The regular price, I think, will be around $200 for this. But as we just launch it, we want to make sure that we keep that, once again, barrier to entry low. Go to FIXnotes.com/network to check that out. All right, so now we're getting into the case study of today. So we're talking about a non-performing second lien secured by a single family residential property that we resolved through a discounted payoff of $37,500. So let's drill into the details here, starting with the fair market value. This property was worth $176,046. The senior lien was $131,000, which leaves us with $45,046 of equity. So this is almost full equity coverage because the principal balance, or the UPB, unpaid principal balance of the second lien, the subject asset here, is $49,733. So we can see that it is underwater. And we ask 3 questions when we start these conversations with our borrowers. What happened? Where are you now? And what do you want to do? In this case, the borrower is a disabled veteran, and the co-borrower actually was the one who made contact with us to try to get a resolution in place. Where are they at now? Well, they initially offered $15,000. We offered them $15,000 to settle the account in full. Sorry, I'm mixing that up. They offered us $15,000 for a full settlement on this account, which really doesn't make sense when you look at the equity being $45,000. It's just unreasonable. We're not able to get that deal done. So we rejected it, but did give a fairly generous counteroffer of $38,733. Eventually, we did settle on a $35,000 discounted payoff. So they actually built a little bit of equity right off the bat in this deal by making that discounted settlement happen. So they actually didn't make it right away. They missed their first deadline, but then eventually settled at the end of December for $37,500. So you can see a couple of things here. One, we had a interesting number. It wasn't a round number in our counter of $38,733. Being very specific with your counter offer like that can show the borrower that you're really working as hard as you can to get them the best possible price. It's not just a round flat number that's not really thought through. You don't necessarily have to think it through entirely. You could have thought 38,000 is a good number for you, but bringing it up to 38,733, it communicates that level of diligence for the borrower. Next thing here is when we countered and got the $35,000 discounted settlement in place, we made sure to have deadlines. So then if those deadlines were missed, we're able to show the borrower that time is of the essence. And by missing that deadline, the amount that they're paying is actually more. So $2,500 more to extend that payoff by a month. And then they know if they miss that December payoff, the deal's not on the table. They need to then renegotiate for another settlement for the following month. So what do they want to do on here? Well, we already discussed it. They want to take advantage of that discounted settlement offer and pay off the debt. So this loan was purchased a couple years ago, so pricing was pretty good as part of a package. It was sold for $18,500 to us. That's 37% of the unpaid principal balance. So part of the reason the pricing was better than today's market is just timing. Pricing was better when there was more deal flow several years ago. In the beginning of 2024, we are starting to see more deal flow coming back, but a deal like this would be more like 55% of the UPB in today's market. And then the other factor, of course, is the unpaid principal balance being greater than the amount of equity in the deal. In other words, the combined loan to value is more than 100%. There's not full equity, but there is a good amount of equity there. We'd call this partial equity. So a couple of takeaways after we talk about the logistics here. 5 months of timeline from when we purchased it to when we resolved the deal. $455 of expenses, which covered the due diligence, the onboarding with our loan servicer, and the collection process, resulted in that payoff of $37,500. So now the takeaways. So first, the borrower's initial offer sets the stage for the rest of the negotiations. Countering with a modification agreement, for example, when they said, we'll pay you $15,000, we could have said, well, $15,000 would be an awesome down payment towards a loan modification agreement. We'd apply that $15,000 towards the principal amount and then start a monthly payment plan. So we did give them that option, but they pushed for the payoff. They really wanted to just clear the lien from the property. So now we're back to the negotiating table with that $38,733 number. So for positive equity deals, in this case, it was partial equity, as we've mentioned, but a great thing to add to your vocabulary here, a little script for you, is discounted settlements or discounted payoffs are reserved for borrowers in the most desperate situations. And fortunately, you do have equity in your property. So we can't write the loan all the way down to $15,000, but we'd be happy to bring the loan into a much better equity position by giving you a $38,733 settlement at this time. So really cool to have that language. So then the borrower understands that you are in the business of helping people, but there are much more negative equity situations where those discounted settlements are reserved. And finally, balance the time and the cost of a foreclosure against a lump sum payoff. So you can share the discount with the homeowner for an amicable win-win resolution, because avoiding the foreclosure process, not only the cost of the foreclosure, but also the timeline that it takes to go through that process, can save everybody some time and headache at the long run to just get the settlement done now. So weigh your internal rate of return with the timing of the foreclosure expenses and the foreclosure timeline. So as we looked at with the Podio database, when we were looking at the Vision Pro, we see that timeline can be used for your due diligence process. In Ohio is 5 to 7 months expected to a foreclosure. So just add that 5 to 7 months into your calculations to see if it's actually worth it to go through that process to collect a little bit more than just taking the settlement today. So really great case study here to show how a discounted settlement can be in everybody's best interest. And it offered the investor in this case an internal rate of return of 246%. So that's especially strong because it only took 5 months. So awesome return on this one. And now I want to wrap things up by telling you a little bit more about that Note Investor Network offer. So you guys are on the YouTube channel, so you know that's part of our free content to democratize this business. We've also got a forum for the people who aren't in the membership, so you definitely can check that out, as we mentioned at the top of the call. And our beginner course is free on FIXnotes.com. Once you upgrade to the Note Investor Network, you get the members-only forum, you get the Foundation Series training, expert session recordings, our weekly office hours for group consulting, special consulting rates with me, and exclusive deal flow. But of course, the Mortgage Note Mastermind is our flagship, our premier offering, where you get everything that's included in the Note Investor Network, including priority access with the group consulting. You get exclusive deal flow as a priority bidder as well. And then you get monthly live expert sessions, all of the recordings. There's over 70 presentations in there that are all available to you, as well as our nationwide Podio database, as we've been exploring a little bit on today's episode, which has a lot more than just the state database, but also counties, vendors, case studies. The counties app has zip codes, so every single asset that you'd want to search has the information with that specific zip code tied to the county. And then of course, our custom asset management software. So we use Podio, as you also saw in the Vision Pro demo, and that custom Podio workspace we clone into our Mastermind members' workspaces so that they can use that for their own organization, systems, and process. So really important just to at least check this out by going to FIXnotes.com/levels, because if you want to shortcut your process, shortcut your path to success in this business, the best way is to work with people who've done it before. And FIXnotes.com/levels actually will show you hyperlinks of every single one of these options to see a little bit more of what we offer. All right, so final offer on that's $97 per month, and FIXnotes.com/network will get you started. It's a 30-day money-back guarantee, by the way, so no risk at all. Tune in next week for industry overview, tech tips, vendor reviews, assets for sale, case studies. We've got giveaways sometimes and so much more at Be The Bank last Wednesday of the month. Thank you so much for everyone joining me today. And I'm not playing my music here because it's not ready. Here we go. And that'll wrap us up for today's episode. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you next time. Hit me up in the comment sections with any questions, and visit the website, the forum, the free course. We've got so much that's just available to get you started before you take the leap into the Note Investor Network or the Mortgage Note Mastermind. All right, everybody. Have a great day.